to today's video. And in today's video, I decided to do something a bit different. This is a bit of a joke video. It is an election prediction between, this is like a Simpsons themed election prediction because I love the Simpsons, between, Springfield Mayor Joe Quimby and his running mate Marge Simpson. I couldn't really think of many Democrats in Springfield, and we do know that Marge is a Democrat. She voted for Jimmy Carter, I believe, although she did vote for Reagan. But then she was also a Democrat. I don't remember the name, but she is a supporter of the Democratic governor of where Springfield is, which they don't say it in the show, but apparently it's actually Oregon. It's kind of weird. Against Monty Burns, so Montgomery Burns, Mr. Burns, whatever, owner of the Springfield nuclear plant where Homer works, and then Rich Texan. That's literally his name. He's just a rich Texan who shoots his guns a lot. So yeah, let's get started by labeling Quimby's safe states: Washington, Oregon, California, Colorado. I think Colorado would be safe. Springfield is a suburban area. It's obviously not like a suburb of capital city, but it's a fairly suburban, seeming area. And he was able to win mayoral races there. Yes, we did see him lose, sort of. We saw a recall election between him, Homer as an independent, in that one episode where he was a gecko or whatever for the school. It was weird. And Rainier Wolfcastle, who I did consider making Monty Burns as running mate before I decided to make it Rich Texan. But I ultimately, once again, decided not to. And we've also seen him lose against Sideshow Bob from voter fraud. But, it was voter fraud, so he didn't, so I think he ended up winning his seat back or something. It was an odd episode. But I do think that Quimby does have the suburban support to win a state like Colorado. Not to mention, it does have a fairly high minority population, and Mr. Burns, along with a lot of characters in The Simpsons, honestly, is just plainly racist, which would obviously not help. But, so, now labeling his safe states: Utah, Idaho, Wyoming. I think that Montana would be safe. I think he would carry it, by a safe margin. It would narrowly be safe, but I do think it would be safe. Indiana and West Virginia. Actually, not Indiana. And that is it for safe states. The first district might be safe, but I'm not going to say it will be. Now for Joe Quimby's safe or likely states. Mexico, Virginia, not New Hampshire, excuse me. Maine at large. And once again, I did say that Mr. Burns is just plainly racist at times. I don't really think that would play a big role in it, but it's just like a random little side note. Quimby also obviously has his flaws. He's not a great person. They're both, for whatever reason in The Simpsons, most people are generally bad people. There are a few good people, Lisa, Marge, and that's about it. But for those are essentially the likely states. I do think that New Mexico would obviously still be likely. I think he'd probably do it slightly better, probably win it by 11, 12%. In the state of Virginia, he's a strong suburban candidate, once again, and he's fairly establishmentarian. He's, not really, he can be viewed as establishmentarian. I don't really think he would be, but I think that he is a fairly strong suburban candidate. He's weird in a way because he has working class appeal. He can win the Homer Simpsons and Lenny and Carls of the world. Yet, he also has establishmentarian appeal, which is odd, but he does. So I'm going to give him Virginia by a likely margin, and or suburban appeal, and I do think that he would also carry Maine by a likely margin. He would do better in rural areas. For Mr. Burns, likely states: Nebraska's first, Kansas, Missouri, Indiana, Alaska, South Carolina. So, for Kansas, it was likely this election cycle. I do think that Quimby is just a strong candidate among white rural voters, and that he would probably just manage to keep it likely there. Missouri, same thing. Strong candidate among white rural voters. Just needs to shift it a little bit to the left. Same in Indiana and Alaska and South Carolina. They're both likely in 2020. He'll probably just be able to do slightly better than Biden there. Now, for Mr. Burns, Quimby's lean states, I do think that Nevada would be lean. I think that Nebraska second. I didn't label it earlier. I think that would actually be likely, and I'll explain why in a minute. Minnesota, I think it'll probably be lean. New Hampshire, I think, would be lean. And that is it for his lean states. So in the state of Nevada, Biden won it by 2.4%. Sorry about that. I think that he's a fairly strong suburban candidate. I don't think he would do amazingly in Clark County, but he would do well enough, and he would probably win Washoe County by a fairly large margin, at least for Washoe County, and that would probably give him the win there. In Minnesota, he's he's a pretty good candidate for the white working class up here in like the Iron Range. I also think they'd probably do pretty well in like Minnesota. I'm saying Minneapolis and like Hennepin County. And he'll probably do well in Minnesota. He probably win it by like upwards of like 4%. New Hampshire, I do think could be competitive. I do think that Mr. Burns has some appeal to, or a lot of appeal to rural New Hampshire voters. I just don't think he has enough. Also considering the fact that, I mean, like, frankly, he's very and I know this is very weird that I'm talking about characters in The Simpsons as if they're actually politicians, but he's very outdated. Similarly to or not similarly, he's more outdated than Joe Biden. Biden was fairly, not I don't want to say outdated, but he was like not in tune, I guess. And Quimby, or not Quimby, Burns is not in tune. He is very, very old, which is obviously like a running joke in The Simpsons. Um, but like his birthday was like 3 digits or something, which is weird. Cause yeah. Anyways, like the year, but I think it was something like that. It's ridiculous. So that's kind of like a running joke that he's old and he's out of touch and he's just like living in some world from like 80 years ago. But he is very out of touch in The Simpsons, and I do think they'll probably carry by a lean margin. Now for his lean states, Texas, Rich Texan will probably help him be able to win it by a lean margin. I mean, like, I don't necessarily know. Like, he is from Texas. His name is Rich Texan. I don't necessarily know that Texas voters would be. I mean, like, Texas does love their guns, but I don't think that Texas voters would be jumping for joy at a crazy man who's always shooting his guns all the time. But I mean, like, he is from Texas. He would have Texas appeal. Maine second, I think, would be lean. Iowa, Ohio, and that is it. So in Texas, I've already discussed it. I think that Burns is a decent candidate for white rural voters, but I think that Quimby is also a very strong candidate for a lot of these voters. He can win in Iowa and Ohio. He can win people like, even though Mr. Burns does own the nuclear power plant, he can win people like Homer, Lenny, and Carl, and it's partially because like a part of it why I do think that he would probably win their votes in this is that Mr. Burns does own the nuclear power plant, and he would be viewed as like this. Like they obviously don't like him in the show, and I mean like he can be viewed as like somebody who's there to like own them. It's odd, but I do think he would probably still carry them by lean margins, even though Quimby does have that appeal. As for Quimby's lean states, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and that's it. Now, once again, has that appeal. Biden won the my lean margins. Probably do well enough. Probably wouldn't do much. Like, he's not a phenomenal urban candidate, but he's not any worse than Biden. Um, Plus he probably has a lot of suburban appeal. Plus Marge actually has a lot of suburban appeal. And then for Burns, tilt states, North Carolina, Florida, and that is it. So for North Carolina, I think he has white rural appeal, but Quimby would have equally probably decent white rural appeal, and he would have strong suburban appeal, and it would probably just get him. It would probably just move it down to a tilt margin. As for Florida, I do think that Quimby would probably do well in Miami. And he'd probably do decent in Pinellas County. He'd probably do decent in Seminole County. Probably do decent in Duval County. Probably wouldn't do better than Joe Biden in Leon County, but probably do well in, I forgot what the county next to Leon County is, but also probably do well in Jefferson County, which is around there, and then in like Monroe County. He'd probably still lose St. Lucie County, but I think he'd be able to do well there. I think he would just overall be like a strong candidate in the state. And Burns would look like an out-of-touch old man, which is not obviously something you want to look like when you're running for president. And now there are 3 states remaining. They're all tilt states, and they're all Quimby tilt states. Arizona, Wisconsin, and Georgia. These states. I mean, like Arizona. I do think it would be. I think that Burns would, well, maybe lean, because Burns, I feel like he has traditional Republican appeal, as he is a traditional Republican. Like, he's always been, like, he's been alive for an insanely long time. So yeah, he has traditional Republican appeal. He has appeal to Republicans, like, before Trump. Like, he was a Republican long before Trump. But he also has appeal to, I feel like he has appeal to Trumpist Republicans. I feel like I don't think we really hear much of Trump in the show because a lot of it is in modern politics. Like we did see that one episode, the Treehouse of Horror, which they're not canon, but where Homer went out to go vote for Obama and he voted like 7 times and he only went to vote for McCain once or something. Yeah, it was weird. Anyways, he does. I think if they were to have a little bit more modern politics incorporated into the show, I think that Burns would be a Trump Republican. I think he would have that appeal. So I think he'd probably be able to do decent in Arizona. But I think that Quimby's suburban support would help him, and he'd probably do better among Hispanic and Latino voters. In the state of Georgia, similar situation. Burns would probably do pretty well among rural voters. But I think that he would do horribly, horribly in Atlanta. I mean, like Quimby wouldn't do great either. Once again, they're both just bad people in general. It's weird because I can actually talk about this now because normally I'm trying to stay bipartisan, but not like they both are bad people because it's like a show. Anyways, looking at this, I mean like he would do bad in rural or he'd do well in rural Georgia, would do horribly in Atlanta, and probably do pretty bad in the suburbs. And then in Wisconsin, he's just not he's a decent working class candidate. I think that Quimby's a stronger candidate. So yeah, I really hope that the election never comes down to this because I mean like they are two not good people. Obviously this would never happen because they're Simpsons characters. If it's the chances of people with these names running are not likely, and them actually winning is even less likely. And it's just like a fun random hypothetical. Thank God this will never happen. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like below. Don't forget to subscribe. Stay tuned for my next video tomorrow. I really don't know what to film, guys. If you have any ideas, please comment them down below. I am working on a midterm selection night, though I'm not necessarily sure that I'll be able to get a lot of work in on it. I probably will be able to get some work on it on Wednesday because my school starts a little bit later, so I have some more time in the morning to like get started working on it. So I'll try to get working on that. But yeah, I hope to see you guys in whatever I decide to film tomorrow. I'll see you all there. Bye.